He married me because I looked like his dead ex. I found her journal in our basement. Our wedding was beautiful. A small gathering, just a few close friends and family, under the sweeping oak trees in the backyard of Daniel's countryside home. Fairy lights hung between the branches, the soft glow of sunset warmed our skin, and the air smelled like roses and champagne. I should have been the happiest bride alive. And for a while, I thought I was. Daniel stood in front of me, looking like every romance novel's dream. Tall, composed, dressed in a sharp navy suit with his dark hair slightly tousled, just enough to seem effortless. He held my hands like I was the most delicate thing in the world. But when he said my name, Chloe, it landed strangely. Too slowly. Too deliberately. Like he was tasting something old, familiar. Everyone else clapped when we kissed. My maid of honor, Kayla, cried. His best man made a cringy joke about how Daniel finally got his happily ever after. I laughed because it was expected. But inside, something didn't sit right. It started with little things. A slip of his tongue. A long stare that lingered too long. The way he looked at me sometimes like he was waiting for me to say something I didn't know I was supposed to say. And then, later that night, in the bedroom where we were supposed to start our life together, I saw it again. The emptiness behind his smile. He kissed me gently, respectfully, too respectfully, like he was afraid I'd break if he touched me too much. And when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see passion or joy. I saw distance, detachment, as if he was trying to remember something through me. We lay in bed, side by side, the moonlight casting silver across the sheets. I whispered, "Do you feel okay?" He turned his head. "Of course. I'm just overwhelmed." I nodded. Maybe I was just overthinking it. First night jitters. Emotional exhaustion. Who knows? But a memory slipped through, uninvited. One night, months before, when we were still dating, I'd woken up to find him watching me sleep. Not in a creepy way, I told myself. Just studying me. I'd asked, "What are you doing?" He'd smiled. "You just look so peaceful." Like her? I had repeated, blinking the sleep away. And then he'd laughed, nervously. I mean, like someone in a painting. Beautiful and soft. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now, lying there, freshly married, I couldn't stop thinking about that pause. That hesitation. He rarely talked about his late wife. Only that her name was Chloe, yes, same as mine, and that she died in an accident a few years ago. Too soon, he once said, voice thick with something like guilt. That was it. No photos around the house, no mention of her to friends. Just an old ghost that hovered at the edges of his life, unspoken. At first, I thought it was sweet that he wanted to move on. That he didn't make me feel like I was living in someone else's shadow. But maybe I was. Maybe I always had been. He turned over that night, pulled me close, his arms strong and familiar. "I'm lucky to have you," he whispered into my hair. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was me he loved. But deep inside, I felt like a reflection. A replacement. He said he loved me for who I was. But he never really saw me. It happened on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the wedding. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even trying to pry. I was looking for cash. Daniel had asked me to grab a 20 from his wallet before he left for work, something about the gardener needing to be paid, and it was supposed to be nothing. Just a normal, everyday errand a wife does for her husband. The wallet was in the top drawer of his desk, right where he always left it. I opened it without thinking, flipped through the bills, and then my fingers brushed against something else. A photo. Old, worn around the edges, creased like it had been handled often. I pulled it out, and for a moment, my breath caught. She looked like me. No, not just looked like me. She was me. Or rather, I was her. Same honey brown hair, same curve of the jaw, same uneven freckle just under the left eye. Even the smile, soft, tentative, looked like one of mine from our engagement shoot. I stared at the photo like it might blink. like she might introduce herself. The background was blurred, just green and light. Probably outside. She was wearing a pale blue sweater. The same one Daniel once gave me, folded neatly in a gift box with a note, "This color would look beautiful on you." I heard the front door click open. Daniel was home early. I tucked the photo back into the wallet and shoved the drawer shut just as he stepped into the room. He smiled. "Did you find the money?" I nodded, holding up the 20. "Yep. I didn't mention the photo." Not then. Not until later that evening, when we were in the kitchen. He was pouring wine. I was pretending to read a magazine, but really just trying to slow my racing heart. "I saw a picture in your wallet," I said, as casually as I could manage. He froze. Only for a second. "But I noticed." Then he turned, glass in hand. "Oh? Which one?" "The woman in the blue sweater," I replied, watching him carefully. "She looks like me." He was silent for a beat too long. "Then that's my wife." I tilted my head. "Your late wife." He nodded. "Chloe." The name dropped between us like a stone in water. "She really did look like me," I said softly, testing his reaction. Daniel sat across from me and reached for my hand. "I know how it sounds, but I swear, that's not why I fell for you. It was just uncanny. Surprising, uncanny." "Right. You never told me we had the same name," I said. He hesitated. "I didn't want to make it weird. I thought if I brought it up too soon, it'd scare you off. And now, I kept the photo because, well, it's a memory. But that's all it is, a piece of my past. You're my future, Chloe." He said my name like it was a promise, but it didn't comfort me the way it used to. I went upstairs not long after that, needing space to think. In the mirror, I looked at myself. Really looked. Turned my head this way and that. Took out the old photo I'd quietly taken from the wallet when he wasn't looking. Same arch of the eyebrow. Same chin. Even the way we smiled, with just the left side of the mouth, was eerily familiar. I touched the glass of the frame on my nightstand and stared at my reflection. Am I living someone else's life? I whispered aloud. The house was quiet, but I felt surrounded. Surrounded by someone else's presence. Someone else's story. A woman I hadn't known but who looked like me, dressed like me, and apparently had the same name. That night, I didn't sleep well. I dreamt of mirrors. Endless mirrors. And in every one, it wasn't me looking back. The basement door had always been closed. Not locked, just closed. Like a quiet boundary I never thought to cross until that Saturday morning when I was looking for something to read. Daniel had mentioned once that the previous owners left boxes of old books down there. I figured I'd dig around and maybe find something weird and charming to add to the bookshelf in the living room. He was out for the day, golfing with a client, or so he said, and I had the house to myself. No eyes watching. No soft, polite questions about what I was doing. Just silence and curiosity. I opened the basement door and was immediately hit with that musty, cool air that only old spaces carry. The stairs creaked under my feet, and the light from the kitchen quickly faded into dimness as I made my way down, flicking the dusty pull chain that turned on a weak overhead bulb. The basement wasn't scary. Just quiet. Forgotten. Wooden shelves lined one wall, filled with old paint cans, dusty vases, holiday decorations, and a few boxes marked with dates. There was a long table in the corner covered in a cloth, and beside it, a few stacked crates labeled books. Jackpot. I knelt beside the crates, pulling off the lid of the top one. A whiff of old paper greeted me, my favorite scent since childhood. I smiled and reached inside, brushing my fingers along cracked spines and water-damaged covers. Some of them had names written in cursive inside. Most were thrillers, a few romance novels with covers so cheesy they were almost art. And then I saw it. A small wooden box, tucked at the very bottom of the second crate, no label, just smooth dark wood with a tiny brass latch. It didn't look like it belonged with the rest of the junk. Something about it felt personal. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a journal. A soft leather cover, worn at the corners. A pink ribbon marked a spot halfway through. My stomach turned when I read the words embossed on the front, for Chloe. If anything happens to me, read this. I blinked. My first instinct was to laugh, nervously, stupidly. Maybe Daniel wrote it. Maybe it was some sort of love letter meant for me. But no, that didn't make sense. The leather was aged, the pages already yellowing. I opened it, and the handwriting was beautiful. Neat loops and careful lines. Feminine. Confident. Not mine. I flipped to the first page. March 3rd. He told me I looked perfect today. Not beautiful. Not sweet. Perfect. Like a doll. Sometimes I think he forgets I'm a person. My heart skipped. I flipped again. March 19th. Daniel brought me the same sweater again. Blue. He forgot he already gave me one 2 months ago. Said it just looked so right on me. I told him that. He smiled and said, "It'll always be right on you." My throat tightened. There was more. April 5th. I asked him today what he loved most about me. He said, "Your silence." I laughed. He didn't. I closed the book quickly, hands trembling. This wasn't fiction. This was real. This was her. Her voice, trapped in pages. Her fears, her isolation, her slow realization that something wasn't right. All of it preserved like a whisper through time. I stood up too fast, knocking over a stack of books. They hit the floor with a thud, sending dust swirling in the dim light. I didn't care. I just held the journal tight, clutching it to my chest as if it might vanish if I let go. All this time, I thought I was building a life with someone. Now I wasn't so sure whose life I was actually stepping into. The words she wrote echoed in my head. Perfect. Right. Silent. All the things Daniel called me too. All the compliments that now felt more like programming. I climbed the stairs slowly, the journal still in my hand. The basement door clicked shut behind me, but its weight felt heavier now, like it wasn't just wood and hinges, but memory, and grief, and secrets. I pressed my back against it and let myself slide to the floor. Who was she? Why did she need someone, me, to read this if something happened to her? And more importantly, what exactly did happen to her? That night, I waited until Daniel was asleep before pulling the journal out from under my pillow. The house was still, save for the soft hum of the fridge downstairs and the occasional creak of the old floorboards. I turned on the bedside lamp, letting its warm glow spill across the pages. My fingers hesitated over the ribbon bookmark before flipping it back to the beginning. Entry 1. April 9th. Title, He Watches Me Sleep. It's the third night in a row. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. and he was just there, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching me. Not lovingly, not like a husband admiring his wife, like a sculptor admiring his work. Like he's checking for cracks. My stomach dropped. I looked over at Daniel, asleep now, breathing steadily beside me, arm draped across his chest. He had done the same thing to me in our first few months of dating. I remember waking up one night and finding him staring at me. Back then, I thought it was romantic. A little weird, maybe, but also flattering. I'd even teased him about it. "What are you doing?" I'd asked, yawning. "Just watching," he'd said. "You look so peaceful." I laughed. "That's creepy." He didn't laugh back. Just said, "You don't understand how rare this is. You're exactly how I remember." Exactly how I remember. I didn't question it then. Now. It chilled me. I turned back to the journal. He doesn't like when I wear red. Or jeans. Or too much makeup. He wants blue sweaters, long skirts, bare skin. Natural beauty, he says. You were perfect, the way you were before. I keep wondering, before what? I blinked. Daniel always complimented me most when I wore that exact same blue sweater. The one he gifted me our second week together. He said I looked like myself in it. I thought he meant it in a sweet, grounding way. Now, I wasn't so sure. He corrects my laugh sometimes. Not with words, just a look. A tightening of the jaw. I asked if something was wrong, and he said no, I just remember it sounding a little softer. More delicate. I'm learning to laugh quieter, not because I want to, because I think it pleases him. I pressed the journal against my chest and closed my eyes. I remembered a dinner we had just last week. I'd been telling him a story about a clumsy customer at the cafe where I used to work, and I laughed, loud from my belly, and Daniel flinched, just slightly, enough to notice. He smiled afterward, said nothing, but I remembered thinking his eyes had gone colder. Had I also started adjusting myself without realizing it, bending around the edges of someone else's preferences? I opened the journal again. I asked him once if he wanted children. He looked startled, like I'd asked the wrong question. Then he smiled and said, "We've talked about that already." But we hadn't. At least, I don't remember it. But he sounded so sure, like I'd forgotten my own thoughts. That line sat in my chest like stone. Daniel had done the same to me just days ago. Insisted we'd made plans for a trip to Italy next spring. But we hadn't. Not really. He had mentioned it, and I'd said it sounded nice, but suddenly it was booked in, like my half nod had been a signature. Maybe he didn't want a wife. Maybe he wanted a rerun. A do-over. A puppet with the same name, same smile, same skin. Molded into whatever shape he remembered from before. I looked at him again, still sleeping peacefully beside me. How many of the things he loved about me were even me? The blue sweater. The way I tucked my hair behind my ear. The way I said his name, Daniel. Like it was precious. Was it all mine? Or was I just a projection of someone he'd lost? A ghost brought back to life in a different body. I reached out and gently turned the page, but I couldn't keep reading. Not tonight. My hands were shaking too much. I slid the journal back under my pillow and turned off the light. Lying in the dark, I wondered how many of my choices had truly been mine, or if I'd been gently, expertly guided into becoming someone else all along. The attic stairs creaked louder than I remembered. It was late evening. Daniel was in the shower, and I had maybe 15 minutes before he came looking. I had no real plan, just a rising, breathless sense that something was hiding above me, something I needed to see with my own eyes. The attic door pulled down with a reluctant groan, like it hadn't been opened in months. Dust rained down. I climbed the rickety ladder quickly, heart pounding with each step, the air growing warmer and more suffocating the higher I went. The attic smelled of mothballs, cardboard, and memory. I clicked on the single hanging bulb. The light flickered once, then steadied. Shadows stretched across old trunks, wooden boxes, forgotten furniture. I didn't know what I was looking for, until I found it. A corner covered in a floral sheet. Carefully arranged, like someone had tried to honor something without displaying it. I pulled the sheet back slowly. Beneath it, a stack of boxes, labeled in neat handwriting. Chloe. Private. Do not discard. My breath caught. I opened the first one. Old sweaters. Scarves. A perfume bottle. A brush with strands of hair still clinging to it. I dropped it like it burned me. These were hers. The first Chloe's. Not thrown away. Not donated. Preserved. I moved to the second box. Letters. Hundreds of them. Folded carefully, bundled with twine. All addressed to Chloe. Some were hers. Journal entries maybe. Others were from Daniel. Long, obsessive pages of reflection, apologies, and adoration. One note read, "You always knew how to smile just right. I miss that curve. It wasn't just in your lips. It was in your soul." Another said, "I see her in my dreams." Then she showed up at the cafe. Same eyes. Same name. Fate is strange like that. But maybe it's a second chance. My hands trembled. She was the woman he wrote these about. I was the one at the cafe. I dug deeper and found a small silver camcorder. The kind people used before smartphones ruled the world. The battery light blinked red, but it still worked. I pressed play, and there she was. Chloe. The first Chloe. Laughing. On the couch downstairs, wearing that pale blue sweater. Her laugh was light, unrestrained, and unmistakably familiar. The camera zoomed in slightly and she looked right into the lens. "Stop filming me when I look a mess," she teased. Then Daniel's voice. "You never look like a mess. You look like... you..." I froze. He'd said the exact same thing to me last week, when I came into the kitchen with wet hair and no makeup. Verbatim. The video cut to a second clip. Her in the garden, watering flowers, humming the same melody I'd caught myself humming days ago. I hadn't even known where I picked it up. I stared at the screen like it might crack, like her voice would bleed into mine. She wasn't just a memory in this house. She was the house. Her scent in the pillowcases. Her dresses in the closet. Her name in his mouth. I was just... her understudy. "You're her," Daniel said. I nearly jumped out of my skin. He stood at the top of the attic stairs, hair still damp, towel slung over his shoulder. I had no idea how long he'd been watching me. He stepped forward, slow, like I was a frightened animal he didn't want to startle. "You weren't supposed to see all this," he said, voice too calm. "It wasn't time." "What is this?" I whispered, gesturing to the shrine behind me. "You said you moved on. You said..." "I have moved on." He cut in. "You're here, aren't you?" He knelt beside me and reached for my hand. I flinched. "You're her... only better," he said softly. "Don't you see? You're everything she was, but calmer, more open. You even love the same music. It's like she found her way back to me. Through you." "That's not love," I said, my voice shaking. "That's obsession." He blinked, then smiled, like a man who didn't hear what I'd said at all. "I knew it the moment I saw you. Same walk, same laugh. I didn't believe in reincarnation before, but now..." I backed away slowly, every hair on my body standing on end. This wasn't grief. This wasn't love. This was possession dressed up in romantic words. He stood as I did. "You're scared," he said. "That's okay. She was scared too at first. But she came around." That was the final crack. I bolted for the attic ladder, gripping the camcorder in one hand, the letters in the other. And as I descended, I realized with terrifying clarity, he never stopped loving her. He just started loving me as her. I hadn't touched the journal in 2 days. It sat in my nightstand drawer like something alive, breathing, waiting. But after the attic, after that, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I had to know how it ended. I waited until Daniel left for work. He kissed my cheek that morning like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't run from him in the attic. Like I hadn't seen the truth. Or maybe he just didn't care that I had. I took the journal and went to the basement. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to be somewhere private. Somewhere she had been too. The light was dim, but I didn't bother turning on the overhead bulb. I sat on the cold cement floor and let the daylight from the small window filter through the dust. I opened to the last entry. The ribbon was still tucked there, exactly where I'd left it. August 12th. Today, I told him I was going to visit my sister for the weekend. I needed space. He said okay, but I saw it in his eyes. Something sharp, like panic. Or calculation. I found my suitcase in the trash the next morning. Burned clothes. He told me it must have been an accident. The dryer caught fire. But I never put anything in the dryer. Last night, I woke up and he was standing over me again. Just watching. His hand was near my throat. He said he was brushing hair off my face. I wanted to believe him. But I'm tired of pretending. If I die, it wasn't an accident. My breath caught. My body went still, and then cold. Like the words had frozen something inside me. If I die, it wasn't an accident. I reread the sentence again and again, each time feeling it settle deeper into my bones. The official story was that she'd slipped in the tub, that she'd hit her head and drowned. But now? Now I couldn't believe that. I turned the journal over in my hands, like some hidden message might be carved into the leather. It wasn't just grief that haunted this house. It was warning. I grabbed my phone and flipped back through the earlier entries, searching for a name. Anyone. Some thread that could tie the journal to a real person. There. Erin. Chloe had written about meeting Erin for coffee, saying she was her best friend from college. I Googled every variation I could think of. Erin plus Chloe plus Daniel plus obituary plus small town. And then I found her. Erin McAllister. Local art teacher. Email address listed on the school's site. My hands trembled as I typed out a quick message. Hi, Erin. I know this is strange, but I believe you were friends with someone named Chloe. She was married to Daniel Whitmore. I think I found something that belonged to her. Can you please call me? I left my number. I didn't expect her to respond quickly, but 15 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered, my voice already tight. Is this Chloe? The voice on the other end asked, cautious. Yes. I mean, it's complicated. A pause. Then, is this a joke? No. I'm not her, I married Daniel a few months ago, and I found her journal. The other Chloe's dead silence. Then Erin's voice dropped to a whisper. She kept it? She did, I said, and I've read it. I just read the last page. Another silence, heavier now. She was scared, Erin finally said. She told me things. Not everything, she was careful, but I knew something was wrong. I begged her to leave. I think she tried, I whispered. She said he watched her, Erin continued, all the time. She laughed it off at first, but one day she called me in tears and said, "He's not looking at me. He's looking through me, like I'm a picture he's trying to redraw." My throat tightened. "I don't think she slipped in the tub," I said. "No," Erin agreed quietly. "Neither do I." We stayed on the line for a while, not speaking. There wasn't anything else to say. I closed the journal slowly, gently, like saying goodbye to someone I never met, but somehow knew. Her fear still lingered in every word. Her desperation, her intuition, her truth. I stood up, holding the journal close. For the first time, I wasn't just afraid for her. I was afraid for me. I packed in silence. Every item folded with care. Every drawer opened and emptied with practiced precision. I didn't take much, just what I'd come with. A few clothes, some cash, my documents, no wedding photos, no keepsakes. Nothing he gave me. The journal sat on the bed, beside my open suitcase. Its weight felt heavier than it should have, not from pages, but from truth. From everything she left behind for someone like me to find. I checked the time. He wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 hours. But something deep in my gut told me I didn't have 2 hours. I was zipping the suitcase shut when I heard the front door open. I froze. "Chloe?" Daniel's voice called out. My blood turned to ice. I tried to grab the journal, but it was too late. He was already at the top of the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, his smile too bright, too quick. "You're packed?" I swallowed hard, heart hammering in my chest. "Yeah. I am." "For what?" He took a slow step forward. "You didn't say you were going anywhere." I straightened. "Because I wasn't planning to explain myself to you." His eyes darkened. Not angry, not yet, but wary. Like something was slipping out of his control. "Where are you going?" he asked, softer now. "You don't have to do this." "I think I do." He looked down at the suitcase, then at the journal. His jaw twitched. "You've been reading it," he said quietly. I nodded. Every word. Daniel sighed and sat on the edge of the bed, his hands clasped between his knees. I knew this day might come. I just hoped. He stopped himself, then looked up at me. "I hoped you'd understand." "Understand what?" My voice shook, but I didn't care. "That you married me because I looked like her? That you said the same things to both of us? Bought me the same clothes, made me live her life?" "No." he said sharply. Not live her life. Continue it. I stared at him. What? Daniel's expression was so calm it was terrifying. She was taken too soon. We had so much left. I never got to finish the story. And then you came along. Same name. Same smile. It felt like fate. Fate? I repeated. Disbelief crawling up my spine. You don't get to rewrite someone else into your fantasy. He stood. I didn't force you into anything. You manipulated everything. He didn't deny it. Instead, he took a step closer. But I love you. No, I said, louder now. You don't. Chloe. I backed away, lifting the journal. This wasn't love. You never loved me. You loved her ghost. He flinched like I'd slapped him. And maybe, in a way, I had. For a moment, he didn't speak. His shoulders slumped, and he looked down at the floor like a man who'd lost something he thought was already his. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. I just couldn't let her go. And you? I'm not her, I snapped. I never was. You didn't fall in love with me. You just dressed me in her skin and called it healing. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I saw regret. But I didn't care anymore. I closed the journal and placed it on the bed beside him. You can keep the ghost, I said. I'm taking my name back. With that, I grabbed my suitcase, walked past him, and headed for the front door. My pulse thudded in my ears, but my steps were steady. I didn't look back. Not when I stepped into the hallway. Not when I reached my car. Not even when I started the engine. Because looking back would mean doubting. And I was done living someone else's ending. The apartment was small, but it had light. Big windows, creaky floors, and a view of the street below where people walked dogs and carried coffee and laughed like nothing had ever haunted them. It was the kind of place that didn't have a past, just potential. And for the first time in months, I needed that more than I could admit. 3 weeks after I left Daniel, I moved here. 4 weeks later, I started therapy. Her name was Dr. Reed, mid-40s, kind eyes, sharp brain. She never made me feel broken, just in process. You keep referring to yourself as a replacement, she said during one session. A mirror, a copy. But what if you aren't? I scoffed. It's hard not to feel like a photocopy when someone builds their entire love story around someone else's shadow. Dr. Reed leaned forward. Then maybe it's time to write something that's only yours. So I did. I bought a new journal. Not leather. Not vintage. Just a plain blue notebook from a bookstore down the street, the kind college kids use for lectures. And I wrote, not about him. Not at first. Just about me. Things I liked that had nothing to do with Daniel or the house or the other Chloe. Like thunderstorms. And apricot jam. And badly written mystery novels with neon covers. I wrote until my hand cramped, until I could breathe again. I got a part-time job at a library. Quiet. Peaceful. Healing. I walked everywhere. Woke up to birds instead of whispered names. No one called me perfect. No one told me what to wear. No one watched me sleep. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry at first, and grief-stricken. But beneath it all, there was something else, something sharp and alive. Clarity. I'd spent months being shaped, gently but firmly, into someone I never agreed to be, molded to fit a hole I didn't make. Loved, not for who I was, but for who I could impersonate. But now I was no one's second draft. I went back and read the first Chloe's journal one last time before sealing it in a box. I didn't destroy it. I couldn't. Her words saved me. But I also knew I couldn't let them define me forever. She didn't get to leave. But I did, and I would carry her voice forward in the way I lived mine, louder, truer, messier, and real. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, half expecting to see him standing over me again. Not Daniel, but the idea of him. The soft-spoken, charming man who painted love like a masterpiece, but used someone else's portrait as the template. But when I sit up and see the moonlight on my own walls, in my own bed, I remember I'm free. I'm not the second Chloe. I'm the only Chloe now. There's a quote I found in a book the library was about to throw out. I taped it to my mirror. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. I think about that a lot. He tried to keep her alive through me, but in doing so, he almost buried us both. He wanted her back, but I found myself, and that's what I write in my new journal, the one that no one will ever read but me. Stories that belong only to me, thoughts unfiltered by someone else's desires, truths I never got to speak before. It's not always easy, but it's mine, and that's enough. As I walk to the coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday, hood pulled over my head, I think about how far I've come, and how much further I'm willing to go. The world is full of people who will try to write you into their narrative. The hard part is learning how to hold the pen yourself. And I'm learning, every single day. Because, turns out, I wasn't the first Chloe in that house, but I'll be the last.